In this lesson, I'm going to show you how to create a disk image from a USB thumb drive using DD in Linux, Unix, or Macintosh system. So the first thing you need to do is connect your USB thumbstick through a write blocker. Now, if you don't have a write blocker, for the purposes of this lab, you don't really need one. Because again, we're not doing a forensic image necessarily, because we're not law enforcement. But if you are working in the field, you really do want to use a write blocker. So I'm going to plug it into my machine, and I'm going to use fdisk-L to list the devices that I have. You can see I have an internal hard drive of 8 GB in size. I have this virtual hard disk of 2.5 GB in size. And then this is my 2 GB thumbstick that I'm looking for. SDB is the device name. And it does have one partition on it that is 1.9 GB in size, and it is a FAT32 or Windows type partition. So to create the disk image, what I'm going to do is do DD and then block size of 64 kilobytes. My input file is whatever that disk is. Now, this is where you have to decide what you want to copy. Do I want to copy the entire disk or just the one partition? Now, in my case, I do want the entire disk. And the reason why is because I want everything that is partitioned and everything that's not partitioned. So if I'm going through and I'm a legal investigator and I'm looking for hidden things, sometimes those exist outside the partition. So by doing the /SDB, I get the entire disk drive, all of the partitions, and any of the blank space. And then the output file, which in my case, I'm just going to call it USB 2GB.dd and hit enter, and it will start copying that drive. This will usually take about 30 seconds for every gigabyte you're going to copy, depending on your system speed. So I'm going to go ahead and fast forward to the end of this copy, and we'll pick it up from there. All right, we're back, and the disk has finished copying, and we can see that here in the directory, USB to gigabyte.dd is the file. So what I want to do at this point is create a hash, because again, that chain of custody is very important. And the way to do that in Linux is just doing MD5 sum, which is an MD5 hash, and then the file name, in our case, USB to gigabyte.dd, and hit enter. It will calculate how that hash will be and output it there on the screen. At that point, I would enter that into my log, and that becomes part of the chain of custody. I would also want to use a SHA-1 or a SHA-256 because MD5 is considered a little bit weak in this day and age. Now, first thing you're going to do is download and install the FTK imager. Once you have that done, you'll go ahead and open it. You will have to give it administrative permission, as I did just there, and it will open up the program. Now, FTK imager does allow you to do a bit of looking through the files, but in this case, we're going to first look at collecting the image for a forensic image. So you're going to go to File, and then go down to Create Disk Image. Then you'll select whether it's a physical drive, a logical drive, an image file, the contents of a folder, or multiple CDs and DVDs. In my case, it is a physical drive because it's a USB thumb drive, and I'll click Next. And then I'm going to select the drive, and in my case, it is physical drive 1. It is a Memorex 2 GB USB thumbstick, and I'll hit Finish. At this point, it'll ask, where do I want to save the file that I'm going to create? So I'm going to go ahead and do it as a raw DD image because any forensic tool can use that, whereas EO1 is reserved for ENCASE and AFF is reserved for FTK. Then select Next. You can give it the information you want. In my case, I'm just going to call this case 01. Evidence number, we'll call that 01. Unique description, USB 2 GB drive. The examiner was my name, Jason Dion, and any notes you may have. Then click Next. Select where you want it to be stored. In my case, I'm just going to save it directly to my desktop so I can find it easily. And then what is the file name going to be called? I'm going to call it USB 2 GB.dd for the DD image. And then I will hit Finish. And I will start. And when I'm done, it's going to verify images after they're created, which will create the hash for me. And we will go ahead and hit Start, and off it will go. Now this will take a couple of minutes because it is a 2 GB thumbstick, and 2 GB is quite a bit of data to be imaging. So it'll probably take us about 5 minutes. So I will speed up the video so you don't just hear and watch it count for 5 minutes, and then I'll come back and we'll talk about it. So as you can see, it took about 2 minutes for it to copy the 2 GB drive. And now it's going through and doing a verification, which is creating the hash. This is going to take us maybe about 20 seconds. And as soon as it's done, we get our drive results. So let's scroll up here and we can look at this. So you'll have the name of the drive, which in my case is USB 2GB.dd.001, which is the first file. The sector count that's going to be involved, you'll see the hash, the reported hash and the computed hash, and they both match. And they should, because that's what we just did. And then it'll also give you a SHA-1 computed hash and reported hash, and there were no bad blocks in the image. So we can go ahead and hit close, and then we can hit close again. Now, let me minimize this, and you'll be able to see the disk image. It is going to sit here inside the JSON Dion folder, which is my administrative account, and on the desktop. You'll see that there are a couple of files here. There is 001 and 002. Now, what is the difference? Well, if you'll notice, this is only a 1.5 gigabyte image. That's where the software by default is going to break these into chunks. So if you have a 1 terabyte hard drive, every 1.5 gigabytes or so, it's going to chunk that into a separate file. That's okay because it's going to be able to read that as I bring that back into the software. And then you'll see this text file, which is just going to have the summary contents for us. So it tells us it was created by FTK. This is part of our chain of custody now. It's going to tell us what the drive looked like. It's going to tell us what the device looked like and its serial number. And it's going to give us the computed hashes and the reported hashes that we did, as well as our verified hashes. So this was a hash before we took the image, and this is the hash after we copied the image. Now, if you want to open this file, we're going to do that inside of FTK, and we can analyze it. So we'll do File, we'll add evidence item. It's going to be an image file this time, because we just created the image, and then we're going to find it. And it is sitting inside my JSON Dion folder on the desktop, and you'll open up the first one, 001, and it will open 001 and 002 for me. The drive shows up here in the evidence tree. Now, as you open it, you'll see the partitioned and the unpartitioned space. So any files that may have been hidden would show up in this unallocated space. Now, if I open up the drive itself, it was FAT32, and I can look at the root of the drive, and you will see the different types of files on it. Notice the ones with the X's here, this .mp3. This is a deleted file, but I can see it because of this forensic techniques that we're using. And you can see all sorts of different music that I used to have on this thumb drive that have been deleted at some point, and some of these files can be restored using this forensic software. The other thing we're going to be looking for here is we can scroll down and see anything that's deleted. You can see all of those files, and you'll be able to see the ones that are not deleted. So let's look at the date modified. What was the most recently touched things on this system? Well, this deleted folder was. So maybe the bad guy was trying to hide something from us. And so I can actually go in and restore that and look at that. Then you can see these other files that are sitting here. Again, these are in the Slack space because they were deleted a long time ago. Now, this again is not a forensics course where I'm going to teach you everything how to do this. I just want to show you some of the capabilities that you can go back and pull some of this information. So if we open this, we can see inside this folder, there was all of these different slides. And so maybe if I open this slide, oh, look, we can find this deleted folder and see what it looked like. It looked like an in brief for some sort of operation. Now, what is this really? Well, this was something I did for my church. We did a spy night for the kids, and these are some old files from that spy night folder that we used. But that's the idea here, is that you can go back and restore some of these things and be able to see what the bad guy was trying to hide as you go through and do the analysis. That's the benefit of this. And we're doing this off the disk image, not the drive we originally collected, because that USB drive is not even plugged into the computer anymore because we don't need it.